Hello, everybody. I am so excited to have you here on Sounds on the Couch for this interview with Dana Bentz. She's joining us all the way from the USA, which, it's Sunday morning here at 10 o'clock, but she's giving up her Saturday evening to be with us today. So it's absolutely so generous of her, and I'm very excited to have her here. So Dana is the head of marketing for live streaming company StreamYard. It's a platform that I use for all my streaming. We're using it right now, and I use it for my Saturday night shows, which many of the musicians that would have played would have used that with me as well. She is in charge of developing and managing the marketing strategy for StreamYard. She oversees the social media marketing strategy and works with the product team to optimize customer experience and retention. She is here today to talk all about setting up that perfect live streaming session as a musician and the things that you can keep in mind when you are setting up your own live streaming. So I'm really excited to have her here, which I think I've said many times already. So I will bring her up and we'll start to have our chat. So hello, Dana.
Hello. Thanks
Thank
for
you
having
so
me
much
on.
for joining us and for giving up
Yeah.
part of your Saturday evening to be here with us.
Yeah, I'm glad we could make it work with the crazy time difference.
Absolutely, and we got it right.
We did.
We
We're
did.
both here.
Great. All right, well, let's just jump straight in and start by maybe you telling us a little bit about your background and how you came to working with StreamYard.
Yeah, sure. So my background's in sales and marketing. Prior to being the head of marketing at StreamYard, I was in real estate sales. So I did a lot of marketing in real estate, marketing houses, and I actually started using StreamYard as a real estate agent. So I started a live streaming show where I would interview other real estate agents from really all around the United States, but a lot of them were in my network here in Oregon, just to kind of learn about how other people are doing real estate sales and how they're kind of innovating in that realm. And so I actually went to school with one of the co-founders of the StreamYard platform. That's how I heard about it, and that's how we kind of got connected. And then once I decided to transition out of real estate, I really wanted to be in the tech industry. And so that's what really drew me towards StreamYard. And then knowing the co-founder, it really was perfect timing for me to transition out of real estate and into the live streaming tech industry.
Yeah, that definitely helps knowing the right people.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
how did you find changing from real estate to tech? It's quite a big change.
Yeah, it was a big change. And, I really liked it. I was really happy with my decision because real estate is there is so much, I think, that needs to be innovated in the real estate industry. It's like not tech savvy yet. I think it's an industry that is starting to get more techy. But I think it's like the average real estate agent in my area was like 55 years old or something like that. And so it's all these people who've just been doing real estate forever, and they might be stuck in their ways, or they might just not welcome tech as much to their day-to-day life. And so that's actually been something I've been really interested in, is bringing tech to real estate. But I have just loved, I've kind of fallen in love with live streaming for tech. And even though StreamYard is a tech company, I think live streaming is so important to the entire tech industry.
Mm, absolutely, and I guess especially now.
Exactly, especially now. Well, it's important to everyone now.
Absolutely. So what's the background of StreamYard itself?
So StreamYard was founded pretty recently. The very first live stream done on StreamYard was October 2018. So we're coming up on being 2 years old. So we're just a new startup, but we've had incredible growth, of course, in the last few months, which we can talk about. But the two co-founders, they went to school together, University of Victoria in Canada, and they just kind of, they were working on internships together, they were in classes together, and then they kind of just decided that they didn't really like any of the jobs they had or the internships they had, and they're like, do you want to just work on something together? And so they decided to do that, and they decided to get really good at coding, and they got really good at programming and software engineering and all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes of the tech. And it was just the two of them, Gage and Dan, and they started another company first that was like it was more of a meeting software, kind of like you and I are meeting, but without the live streaming part. And then they kind of shifted because they're like, well, there's too many of those meeting sites. Like, let's do something a little bit different. So then they made StreamYard in 2018, and StreamYard is a meeting site basically that adds the live streaming component, and then all of the different show production tools you can use, like having our names at the bottom and interviewing lots of guests and having intro videos and things like that. They decided to add that on.
Wow. So they really didn't have that background before they started, which
Right. They were fresh out of college, and I'm not sure what degrees they had, but I know they weren't like computer science degrees. I think they were like engineering degrees. So they kind of just figured it out along the way, which I was so inspired by hearing that story. It's like, it kind of just makes you feel that like building something as cool and as neat as StreamYard is possible for anyone.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. So I guess having a look at where the world's come, and I know it's changed a lot in the last few months, but over the last couple of years since StreamYard began, where do you think the world has developed in terms of live streaming?
Over the last couple of months, I would say it's done the biggest, shift, or the live streaming industry as a whole has grown the most. But live streaming has really been around since, I think, 2008 or something around there, like when YouTube was released. So live streaming has been around, but we really only started hearing about it, I think, when Facebook caught on to it in 2015. And then some people started going live, and then more people would go live, more people were familiar with it. But only in the last few months, since we've all been stuck in lockdown, has it really become like a household name or like a household tool. Like I go live, or like I have my live stream show. And we really saw, like, as soon as everyone was stuck at home, like, we had so many people who were like, I'm unemployed, and this is how I'm staying busy, is like I'm interviewing people in the industry that I'm on furlough for, or that I'm unemployed from, and this is like how I'm going to get a new job, is like by keeping, like, this is my resume, is like hosting a live stream show with StreamYard and just talking about the industry. So I think in the last several months, live streaming has become like an integral part of business owners' marketing strategy, of musicians' marketing strategy, and like just people staying in touch with other people. Live streaming has been the way to do that.
And I think people are just realizing how much of an impact it can have, being able to reach people in a completely different location. Like the fact
Right.
that I'm talking to you and you're in the US right now, and I'm
Right.
in Melbourne, Australia, it's amazing that we can do that, and we can
Yeah.
reach people in any country that has access to the internet.
Right.
So it's
Right.
amazing.
Yeah, I think that's so neat. I think it's so neat that it's Saturday for me and it's Sunday for
Yeah.
you, and we're doing this live, so the audience could be wherever they are in whatever time zone they're in, and there's no like delay for us to be having this conversation, and the viewers can be typing their comments, checking in on us, and it's all happening like right now.
Absolutely. So COVID, we've mentioned before that COVID's forced musicians to reevaluate how they're currently playing their gigs, and how they're reaching their fans. Have you
Yeah.
seen a big change to the way that StreamYard itself has been used and the volumes of users coming through?
Yeah. So right when we all went into lockdown, like middle of March, we saw kind of like different sectors come to StreamYard, and it was kind of interesting. So the very first theme we saw was like everyone from Italy all of a sudden started using StreamYard. And I think that was the very first place to get hit with the illness. And then the next sector was, I think, people from Spain. But then another sector we saw was musicians and churches. And prior to the illness or lockdown, whatever you want to call it, StreamYard was never really used heavily by those two industries, I guess you want to call it that. Like, musicians wouldn't really use StreamYard too much. I'd say our target market, or like our biggest user base, was like a business interview type of show. So someone who went live for their business, they wanted to build their brand. Someone like myself, when I was doing my real estate show, that was pretty much our target market, if you will. And then all of a sudden, we were just slammed by all of these people who had to reach their audiences. Like, when you're a musician, your audience still wants to listen to you. They still want to hear you, but you can't do that in lockdown. And so people were finding that the way they can stay in touch, the best way to stay in touch was to live stream, because most of your fans are going to follow you on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube. They're probably already following you there, or if we're all in lockdown, they're going to find you there. And so it was such a great way for musicians and churches and all these different industries to connect with all of their fans. So that was probably the biggest change. One of the biggest changes. Not only did StreamYard just grow drastically in that time, but we grew in the musician market so much so in that time.
Which would have brought so many other challenges for StreamYard as well.
Yeah.
So how
Yeah.
did you handle those changes? I mean, you've got sound issues that potentially might not have been a problem before.
Right.
How did StreamYard then overcome those issues at such a quick rate?
Yeah. So we had to act fast, because it seemed like Corona happened so fast. It seemed like all of a sudden everyone was just hit in lockdown, or everyone was just in lockdown. And so we tried our best to keep up with the amount of users we had, and we actually did pretty well. Like, we had built the product to be so stable, and so we could handle, like, the physical product itself, like the servers StreamYard runs on, were built in such a way that we could scale with the amount of users that we had. But then we did run into some issues with, like, musicians specifically. Musicians want the best quality sound, and so we had to up the bit rate of the audio bit rate that we send, which I have no idea what that means, but it means you have better sound quality now. And so our
That's all we need to know, isn't it?
right?
Yeah.
That's all you need to know. And so our engineers were working on, how do we figure this out? Like, how do we make our product, how do we make it work for all these people who now need StreamYard to work for them? And so the bit rate was one thing, and then we already had a musician setting. It's our live music HD audio setting. It's called disable audio processing. If you're out there and you're a StreamYard user, you'll know what that is. So we already had that setting. We just made it better. We made the sound quality better. But there's also, musicians, of course, want to stream in stereo audio, but we're still only in mono audio. So that's something we're still working on adding specifically for musicians.
Excellent. That's exciting. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, I bet.
So what are the benefits for artists utilizing streaming platforms themselves, rather than going directly to a Facebook or an Instagram or a YouTube?
That's a good question, because a lot of people don't really understand what you can do with a live streaming tool, if you want to call StreamYard that. But I would say the biggest reason to use a streaming service or a streaming tool is for the reach that you can get, the maximum reach that you can get. So StreamYard, for example, You can multi-stream the same feed. We can take our interview and put it on Facebook, and put it on our Facebook group and our page and our profile, and we can put it on YouTube, and we can put it on our band YouTube channel and our personal YouTube channel. We can put it on Twitter. We can multi-stream the same feed out to all these platforms, and that just gets us the most reach for all our audience, and it's going to help our audience grow. And so I think that's the like multi-streaming is so crucial when you're trying to build a brand, or when you're trying to increase your viewers or grow your audience. When you're really trying to just grow, multi-streaming is so important to that. And then another thing that going live directly to a platform doesn't let you do is, like, if you're going to stream directly to Facebook, you can't show any comments on the screen. So you can't interact with your viewers as much. Like, you can keep checking the comments, like, on your phone and see what people are saying. But it's so fun to show a comment on screen and then have you and I talk about it and say, oh, hey, George, thanks for tuning in from Texas. And that's so much fun for the audience members. And then that helps your audience grow even more. So those are the two things I think I would keep in mind if you're deciding, like, should I do multi-streaming, or should I just pick one and go to one?
Yeah. And I guess, look, I know I use StreamYard, but for those who've never used it, how easy is it to use the platform?
Ooh, I love that question. I love that question because so one lady told me before, she's like, Dana, it's like you go live in 5. Like, it takes 5 minutes to set up your StreamYard studio, and that feels true to me. Like, one of StreamYard's, we have 3 pillars of business, like how we make decisions and how you can think of our brand. The first one is ease of use. So we tried to make the platform StreamYard, we tried to make it as easy to use as possible, because we wanted to attract the people who weren't super techie and didn't want to figure out how to set up a streaming encoder and have a really complicated tech like software downloaded onto their computer and have all this high-powered gear. Like, we didn't want that. We just wanted to keep it simple so that people could focus on what they do best. If it's interviewing people, if it's doing a live performance, like, you don't want to focus on all that other stuff. You want to focus on the actual performance, or like the content. And so we built StreamYard to be super easy to use. So we walk you through setting up all your destinations, we call it. So you just set up your Facebook profile, and we walk you through how to do that. And then we walk you through, we have tutorials, like, this is how you go live. And the nice thing about StreamYard is there are so many features that you can add onto it, but you can also start simple by you just add a guest with the little guest link, and then you're in an interview just like that, and you can go live as easy as that. And then once you start streaming for a while, you can add the fancy things, like you can add a countdown timer video, or you could add a commercial if your show is being sponsored by someone else. Like, you can add all these fancy things. You can add your logo in the corner if you're building a brand or something like that. But to get started live streaming, StreamYard just makes it as easy as possible.
Yeah, and I love that feature that I can just, for a Saturday night show, I can just give a link to the artist that's playing, and they can click on the link, put their name in, and they're already in the back-end studio. I think that's fantastic. Yeah.
And it's so, we also made it easy, not only on the host end, like when it's your show, but also on the guest's end. Like you just mentioned, you just send a link, they just click the link, and they open it up in the browser. So there's no downloads. You don't have to download the StreamYard app. Like Zoom, you don't have to do that. You just go to your browser, you click on the link, you don't have to sign up for anything. It's just so easy. You just click it, and then you get to your camera test, and then you're in the show.
Very easy. So what do musicians need to be aware of when they're looking at a platform in general?
That's a good question. I think I would look for a platform that has good quality audio, because for musicians, obviously that's important. Now it has to be a stable service. Like that's StreamYard's second pillar of business, ease of use and stability. So it has to be a really stable platform, because when you're live, nothing can happen. Like your show can't go down. You can't have technical difficulties. It's got to be really stable. And that's been hard for some companies to keep up with all the scaling that we've all had to do, and still stay stable. But I think as long as the streaming service or streaming tool is stable and it is built for musicians, or it has musician settings like for high quality audio, I think that's what you've got to look for.
Yeah, excellent. Well, I guess you've already spoken about this a little bit, but there's so many streaming services around that have been designed for what we're doing now. So it's interviewing.
Right.
But so many of them aren't really at the standard for musicians to be able to play and have
Right.
good quality sound.
Right.
What can they do within StreamYard in order to really get the best quality of sound?
So I think I would think about and I would focus on three things. So internet quality makes the biggest difference in quality. And I think a lot of people overlook that, just because if you're not streaming and you're just searching online, you can think that you have fast internet, but then when you're in a live show or in a live interview, you can tell that your quality's not as great as you want it to be, or your picture isn't as clear as you want it to be, and that's because your internet is not as fast as it needs to be, or you're too far away from the router and you're 3 rooms far away. So I think internet is something you really need to worry about or pay attention to, or just make sure it's the best you can have, best possible internet. And then your microphone, of course, that's key. And it doesn't have to be super expensive, as long as it's just not the built-in computer microphone, then you're on the right track. And so I just have it's called a Yeti microphone. I don't know how good it is for musicians, but I really like it just for interviews. It's been great for me, and it always works, and that's what I really like. But you can, I hear a lot of musicians use the Rodecaster.
Got the Rode NT.
Is that what you have?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. And I like your sound.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then on StreamYard specifically, we do have we call it disable audio processing. And it's because you have a great microphone. You're probably doing a lot of the processing on your end. So StreamYard doesn't need to use its built-in processing. So when you disable our audio processing, that just unlocks our HD audio quality. So you have to have that. It's a little box in StreamYard. You have to have it checked.
In settings.
Yeah, just in settings. So you check that box, and then you have better sound. You have a higher bit rate, and it's just going to sound so much better when you're a musician.
Yeah. Okay. And with going back to the internet side of it, what are some things that people can do to really get a better internet connection? Or you mentioned being close to the router.
Yep.
What about using something like an Ethernet cable or
Yes.
something to connect?
Yes. So Ethernet, that is best case scenario. Like we highly recommend people plug in directly to the router, just because you don't have to have very fast speeds. The connection on StreamYard it's more important to have a stable connection to your router. So that's why we do recommend plugging into your Ethernet. But if it's not possible, just moving as close as you can to your router, that's going to be the best case scenario. So if your router's in your office, stream from your office. And I know some people have routers in crazy places, like they have it in the attic or in the basement, but as long as you can just be as close as you possibly can, that's going to be the best for you. And you don't have to plug in with Ethernet. Like, we recommend it, but I'm just on my Wi-Fi. I'm not on Ethernet cable, and my router is just very close to me, and my stream is doing okay.
Yeah, it's doing well.
Thank you.
What about different devices as well? I know that under the circumstances with some of our shows, we've had people on very different devices. Some have had great
Right.
setups with their computer and their interfaces and microphones, and some have just been using their phones. And obviously
Right.
there's differences in connection.
Yeah.
Are there things that people need to consider when using different devices?
Yeah, so for StreamYard specifically, it's nice that you can join from any device when you're a guest. You can be on a phone, you can be on a tablet, you can be on computer, laptop, you name it. So it's a nice feature to have, but we still recommend using the computer for a few reasons. You can't plug the phone into Ethernet unless you have some kind of weird adapter. And so that's one thing that we like about computers. And then it's also the disable audio processing, the audio feature I just mentioned, that doesn't work as well on the phone specifically. It works a little bit differently. And so you get better audio quality from the computer. But not everyone has a computer. So that's the nice thing about being able to use the phone to stream. And also, another thing about the phone is you can't plug every single external thing that you have into the phone, like a microphone and a webcam, and like you can't do all that in the phone. So that's why we also like computers, just because they can do more things, and there's a bigger screen for you to watch on. There's just fancier things you can do to have a better stream on the computer. So that's what I would recommend.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. So what can artists do within their own home setup in terms of like maybe, well, we've spoken about sound, but like backgrounds and lighting. I mean, you can see I'm a little bit
Yeah.
dark today with the sun coming in on a weird angle. But, what can they do to look at creating a great live that's outside just the sound, like to create a great picture, all
Yeah.
of that kind of thing?
Yeah. So you can start small, or you can start just basic with what you've got, like with your built-in webcam for your computer, or you can use your phone. You can use your phone's webcam on the computer with a special app that you can download. So you can start with the things that you have, and then you can kind of graduate up to like fancier equipment. So I'll start with picture first. Like the webcam I'm using is a Logitech C920 webcam, and I really like it just because it works for me every time, just like my microphone that I was saying. It never fails me, so I like it. It's not the highest end camera you can get, but it does the job for me, so I really like that. But you don't have to use a webcam that you purchased. You could just use the built-in one for your computer to start off with. And then a lot of people don't realize how much lighting affects the picture quality. So you can have the best webcam out there, but if your lights are like coming in from the side, or they're behind you, or there's just no light and it's dark, the picture quality is not going to look the same. It's not going to look good. And so I might even recommend starting with the lighting. Like get your lighting set. Like if you're going to use a natural light, then you sit in front of the window, and the natural light's coming onto your face. Or if you don't have natural light, then you set up your lamps in front of you, and you don't have any light behind you. You can be like against a wall. That's normally good. So lighting's good, but you don't have to have fancy lights. Like people have been buying, I don't know what you call them, ring lights for live streaming, but you don't need fancy lights like that. You can have lamps just in front of you, just lighting up your face, and if you're playing an instrument, like that's going to be good enough. So I might start with lighting, and then I would move to equipment like a webcam. But if you're a musician, like you said, sound is first. Like we've got to get your sound down, and then we can worry about the picture.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've already asked that, sorry. How is engagement during a live stream different from engagement when you're actually in a live performance? Obviously, there are things that are very different, but what are the benefits of
Yeah.
actually streaming in terms of engagement?
Yeah. So, my gut sense says that live streaming is way different in a bad way than being with a live audience. But what we've found is that you get to, as an audience member, you get to connect with your musician in such a deeper way. Like we found with actors, for example, not necessarily musicians, they're sitting at home and they're live streaming, and they're able to chat in the comment section with some of their biggest fans. And the fans have really liked that. Like they like the realness of it. Like they like seeing you live, and they like seeing the mistakes you might make when it's a live show. Like there's no editing here. There's no TV production. Like it's just you and me in an interview, or it's just you and me playing a show. Like that's it. I think that's been a really big difference that we've found, where live streaming is actually really neat, and it's a really great thing to add for a performer or for a musician, just add to their toolbox. And I think what we're going to see is another thing live streaming can help is that since it grows your audience so much, and it allows you to connect with people anywhere in the world, I think a lot of people are going to keep live streaming as a tool in their tool belt, even when they do go back to live performances, because you can't replicate a live performance. Like you can't replicate the audience members cheering for you or singing along to your song. You can't do that. But when you're in a live show, you can't show that same show to someone in Australia while you're in the USA unless you're live streaming it. And so I think what we're going to see a lot of people do is just keep live streaming when they go back to their shows in person.
Yeah, I was actually talking to one of the artists last night who was saying that he's discovered so many more bands that he wouldn't have gone out to see previously because,
Right.
you know, he didn't know them. And so there's
Right.
so much opportunity, I think, that's out there for live streaming.
Yeah,
Um,
I think you're right.
yeah, so what are some things that people can do in order to test the stream before they get going? I guess there's a big fear when people are looking to live stream. It's like, what if it's not working? What if my sound isn't sounding right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What can people do beforehand to get ready?
I do recommend doing a tech check or a test recording, because it is so great to just make sure everything's working, and it does calm your nerves once you know everything's working. And so I like doing sound checks like a day before, especially if you're having a show with multiple guests. It's nice to bring them in a day before, just so that they know like how to join a StreamYard studio, and just to make sure they know which mic to use and which camera to use. They got everything set up. But you can test your live stream on StreamYard at any time. There's a couple of ways to test. The easiest way to test is to just record it, which is just not live streaming. You're just recording it to your computer. That's the easiest way, but you can also, there's so many other ways you can test, like doing a private YouTube live stream. Then you're just watching yourself privately on YouTube. But I definitely recommend just doing a quick, like you can do a very quick test. You can just, like, it's easy to set up a StreamYard recording. You just set it up, you go in there, you start recording, play a song, maybe stop recording, make sure it's all good. And then if you have guests, you can just have them in. It can take 10 minutes. Just make sure everyone's good. And then the day of the show, I like to come in 5-10 minutes early just to do a double check to make sure everything's still good and nothing's changed since the day before. That happens sometimes.
Yeah. Other than playing live gigs, are there any other ways that you think that artists can utilize live streaming to be able to build their profile more, or develop their audience further?
Yeah. You know, I would probably also, other than live gigs, I would probably do interviews maybe with other artists, because you might be able to reach their network or reach their audience in an interview. So if you and I are doing an interview, I'm sharing the video to all my network, and now they hear about you and know about your show, and then you're sharing me and my website to everyone, and they now know who I am. And so I think that would be a great way. And it doesn't need to be an interview like with questions. It could be like you're playing songs together, like you're taking turns playing songs together. I think that would be a really neat way. And then you're also just connecting with other artists that way, which is going to be nice while we're still in lockdown. That's really nice to do.
Yeah, I think there's so many opportunities if you start to think outside just
Yeah.
performing of things that you
Yep.
can do.
Yep. I think you're
Um,
right.
Yeah. So get creative, everyone.
Yeah.
So what do you think the future of live streaming is from your perspective?
That's a good question. At the beginning of lockdown, when we started getting all these new customers, I had a feeling that they were all just going to leave as soon as we went back to work. But as time has gone on and as live streaming has grown and as we've still stayed in lockdown,
Yeah.
I feel like live streaming has become so much more of an integral part of our lives now that I think it's going to stay through, like I think it's only going to grow as an industry. And so I see more people starting to live stream. I see like especially musicians. I keep going back to musicians, but I see them return to live shows and start live streaming those. We also have churches, and they're going to go back to church soon. But they're also going to live stream their church services still, because some people don't. They've liked the at home experience and they want to just stay at home and see the church service from home. And so I really don't think like I really think the live streaming industry is only going to grow.
Absolutely. Is there anything else that you would like to share with the audience before we finish up?
That's a good question. You know, I want to say start streaming. If you're not already streaming, I want to say to start streaming, but I also want to talk to the person who might be nervous about live streaming, because that was me a year and a half ago, where I was just like yeah, because like live streaming, it seems so scary. Like it seems like this is public speaking, and what if I mess up because it's live? Like what if I make a mistake? Like it feels like so much pressure, and it feels like, what if people don't watch my show? Like what is that going to be like? But all of those things, first of all of those things don't really matter. Like, who cares if you don't get that many views? And also, the algorithms of the platforms have changed, so that even if you don't have very many followers of your Facebook, of your YouTube, whatever channel you're streaming to, the algorithms will push your content out when people are engaging with it. So it's not necessarily your followers. It's about, are people enjoying this song you're singing, or are people enjoying the interview you're having, and are they commenting and liking it and just reacting to it? So I would just keep that in mind if you're thinking about live streaming. And it's also, people are so much more forgiving of live stream content. Like they're like, yeah, Dana's just at her house and this is like real time. So if she makes a mistake, like that's fine. Like I know she's live. Like people are so much more forgiving because of that. And now that live content is becoming so much more and more, it's becoming more and more popular. People are also that much more understanding, because they're like, yeah, I have a live stream show. I made a mistake too last night on my show.
And I think it's not when you're performing, it's a professional experience, but when you're at home,
Right.
people have that personal kind of feeling, like, you're in your
Right.
home, you're on your couch, you're just
Yeah.
relaxing like them.
Yeah. And people like that. Like they love to see that. They love to see, like, this is the real artist behind this band that I love, for example. Like they like being a part of their home experience, like just them playing in the living room.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. All right. Well, thank you so much for being a part of today. It's been such an amazing conversation, and I'm really grateful for you giving up part of your Saturday night. So,
Oh, absolutely. It's
yeah,
been
I'd
such
love
a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me on, and it's
so
I'm
welcome.
so glad that we made this time work for the two of
Oh,
us.
yes, got it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And yeah, if anybody has any other questions, if they're watching it back, just let me know, and I can um, reach out to Dana and try and get some questions answered for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, have a fantastic Sunday for all you in Australia. And um, Dana, have a great Saturday night.
Thank you. Thank you. You too.